it's like your job. I heard the other day said, I heard 10 or 12 people go to the sheriff. I said, let's get 20. They don't have a goddamn clue what they're getting into.
Oh, yeah,
not
because
this day and age.
But everybody.
I'm gonna tell you something. If it was back in the day, would they, like when Alan Marshall take a damn blackjack, whoop their ass, and throw them in the cell? I'd run for sheriff.
Yeah. Well, it's not like that no more.
I know. We'll take them down here on Mud Creek and hang them up with the damn rope.
Yeah.
But you can't do that.
The thing about it is,
they got more rights than we got.
These are some random guys talking in the backwoods somewhere in Alabama about how they want to lynch black folks. No, these are folks that are in charge. These are people that are in positions of power to do just that. These are Oklahoma officials from McCurtain County, and they were caught on audio talking about murder, laughing about people dying, and specifically in this case, talking about how they can't go back to the good old days of lynching black folks, because if I could do that, then I'd be sheriff right now. So as we continue to act like our country has advanced so much, we see things like this. Some of the things that they talked about, because there's much more, was lynching black folks, as you heard there, murdering and burying journalists, and making fun of a woman who died in a fire, acting like she's a piece of meat, literally. We'll get to all that. So let's go to the next part about this, because look, these folks from the Curtin Gazette News, which is a small town newspaper, one of the few that's still just print only, they had suspicions about these folks, these officials, and the way that they talk about everyone, and they don't like the way that this particular newspaper has been covering them or exposing them. So this is what they had to say about some of these journalists, the very ones who exposed them. Watch.
What they really don't know is
and that's the thing about it. 20 years ago, I would have done something like that. I mean, 20 years ago, I wasn't in a political position. You know?
They're insignificant in my life.
Yes.
Really, they bring that to the table.
You know,
what comes around goes around.
It will. I told you it will.
Yeah.
I know where two big deep holes are if you ever need them.
I got an excavator.
These are already pre-dug. Yeah, but the thing of it is, you know.
We actually told the truth.
I've known 2 or 3 hitmen that were very quiet guys.
Yeah.
And would cut no fucking mercy.
Yeah.
In Louisiana, because it was all mafia around Louisiana.
Oh yeah.
Officials talking about murdering journalists. They've got hitmen available that do things very quietly and viciously. They got a couple holes already dug for these journalists. Which country does this sound like? All these small town backwoods areas, I'm not even sure if this is one of them. It could be even more expansive than that. They talk very freely and openly about their murderous beliefs. There's more, though. Mondale, I feel like I need to let you in first because there's so much to already talk about. These things have been exposed, and there are some questions for action, but I'm not sure what's going to happen yet.
Before any of these actions happen out, we should first play out the circumstance that everybody that's been charged by this sheriff or anybody in his department should bring. If you're black, bring your case back up, get a lawyer, because we see that there's racism embedded in this culture. The fact that you are this comfortable in a space with this many people having this conversation, I hate to see what your private conversation is about. You may be talking about the bodies you buried. These people are talking about a sheriff talking about he knows 2 or 3 hitmen that are quiet and cuts no mercy. Where are these hitmen? Where are they? Why aren't you? What kind of lawless? This is the Wild Wild West. But we also know this is the America that we live in. We know that they're talking about stringing up, going back to the days where you could string up black bodies in public square and there'd be no repercussions. And the fact that you can't do that means that black people have more rights than them. What they're really saying is white people have no right or obligation to follow or respect any rights that any black people have. And the fact that they're being made to do that is problematic for them. This is absolutely disgusting that public officials, allegedly public officials, are showing up in this manner. But hey, this is America, and we should not be surprised. When we pretend that we're surprised, we give space for white people to continue to act as if this is not the norm for black people in this country.
Well, that's for somebody to protect something like that. I'm glad you brought it up that way, because I was just writing down for folks who support the police broadly and blindly and say everything a police officer does is perfectly fine because he never messes with me. If that's your thought process and you hear something like this, then what does your brain do? What's the next step for you? Is it, oh, I'm going to dismiss that out of my brain because I need my narrative to continue to live? Or would you then be the most incensed about this? You should be the most upset about this because your reality has now been challenged with some real reality. And you should be thinking, we need to clean this up so that my belief in the police system can go back to being pure, because you've just been shown how bad it is. And if you were actually on the other side of these declarations and these plans, would you be okay with it? Would you be okay with these police officers talking about potentially murdering your wife, your husband, your kids, your family, you, because of who you are? The thought process doesn't go that far. It's just be quiet. It's really not a problem. It doesn't affect me. So we've talked so far about journalists. Maybe you guys hate journalists, so you're okay with that. And we've also talked about black folks and they want lynched again. Okay, fine. You hate black folks too, so who cares? How about just a regular citizen who was a victim of a fire and the way that they laugh and talk about her? Let's listen to that.
On a bark body, we wrap it up in tinfoil to preserve the body and stuff like that. And we got all the body parts and stuff like that. And Kyla was out there too.
All the body part. Oh, she come apart.
Yeah, just the burnt bodies.
I know. I picked up on
and
they really fall apart when they're burnt.
And yeah.
Have you ever had barbecue?
That's another.
Yeah.
Same.
I'm hungry.
Kyla looks at the face.
Glasses
And they got to wrap the tinfoil and put it in the body bag. Kyla goes, "You do know what we got to do now, right?" And Face goes, "No, what?" She goes, "You got to preheat the oven 350 degrees, leave her in there for 15 minutes." And she went,
Get the feeling maybe some of these hitmen are out there in the office themselves, because he talked about how cold and calculated and quiet they are. Only problem is this guy's really loud. Let's take a look at the McCurtain County Sheriff, Kevin Clardy. Doesn't matter. Let's look at him. The governor of Oklahoma has called for the resignations of both this sheriff and other top officials in this rural county after they were recorded talking about all this stuff. Beating, killing, and burying folks. A father-son team of local reporters is those two that they were talking about, and all the rest that we've heard. The Willingham family, who runs the newspaper, by the way, that's exposed them. Again, it's a print-only newspaper. It's one of the few left in the country. They've turned over these recordings, and how did they get them? Apparently, they slipped some audio equipment in this room where they were going to be meeting, potentially knowing the types of things that they like to talk about, and how all sheriffs and these officials have to do is go, "No, we didn't. We're the good old boys. We're very fair," until you hear the reality of what is happening. One more part here, Mondale. For nearly a year, they've suffered intimidation, ridicule, and harassment based solely on their efforts to report the news from McCurtain County, is what the statement said from these folks there that got this information. None of the four officials named by Stitt, who's the governor, could be reached for comment. But late Monday, the McCurtain County Sheriff's Office said in a statement that the recording was illegally obtained and appears to be altered. Mondale, I can't wait for them to tell me what was really in those conversations and how those words that they said were taken out of context.
Yeah, you can't make a context about knowing a hitman bad. I mean, you can't fix that. You also can't fix the fact that you want to go back to days when people can be hanging or hung. I'm sorry with this idea that it appears to be illegal, and also it seems to be altered. Altered what? What's altered? The altering as it came out. That's the altering. The fact that the world knows how you believe and think. I think the idea, though, what we see here is we are so quick to point our fingers at China and countries in Central South America about killing and doing certain things to journalists. We are silent. We're silent in this country as we see Fox News attack real journalism. We see Donald Trump, and now we see what's happening with sheriffs in rural counties across this country when people don't like what's happening. These people they put those recordings there because they knew that they had been suffering from this for more than a year, and nobody was believing them. Because like you said, them good old boys, and ain't no way they acting up like that. They love the rule of law, when in actuality, they don't give a damn about law. They care about respect for what they believe in, which seems to be white supremacy, and a time where only white people had laws that were that should be followed as it benefit them. I'm nervous. I'm nervous because I think this way of thinking is the norm for police departments across this country. And if it wasn't, it wouldn't be so many people dying year after year at the hands of police officers, especially people that look like you and me.
We've seen the text messages. We're seeing this out in Oklahoma somewhere. We've seen the text message from the LA County sheriffs. We've seen, and that's a huge department. And so it doesn't really matter the city that you're in or the size of it or the demographics. And matter of fact, if there's more diversity, you just might find more of this because they have an opportunity to go after the others that everyone's always targeting. So one last thought here. Imagine you're a black person. Try for a minute. and you want to take a cross-country road trip, because I've done that before. You find yourself in the middle of some town in the middle of Missouri, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, Texas. And then these folks talk like this. Do you think you feel any kind of way safe? Do you feel like you feel safe in your country? Because we have this weird mindset of, if I go over to Iraq, Iran, any other country, and I don't know anything what's going on there, I should watch my back and try and figure it out, because something wild may go down. And you know what? I have those thoughts too. But you know what? Most minorities in this country have a thought about when they go through across our country to unknown areas like that. I could end up missing and no one could ever find me again. And the authorities here could potentially be responsible for it. And that's a reality we have to deal with in the country. And as we tell those stories, you go, you know how far we've gone? Because that doesn't affect those people that like to shoot down these types of things until you hear it. Every time someone talks about how these libs want to get rid of the police or defund them or reallocate funds, ask them what they think of these types of interactions and why that's okay, because they never answer that question.